like to call this meeting to order. Start with roll call. Director Drake.
Liz Drake, Director, District 3.
Hiroshi Eto, Director, District 5.
Claire Wilson, Director, District 2.
Jeffrey McAnally, Director, District 1.
Carol Gregory, Director, District 4.
Tammy Campbell, Superintendent.
And now if you'll all please rise for the presentation of the colors by Federal Way High School JROTC. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the approval of the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of February 28th, 2017 as submitted.
A motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I now entertain a motion for the approval of the required approvals agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the required approvals agenda of February 28, 2017 as submitted.
A motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now it is time for good news announcements.
All right, this is one of our favorite times. So as the superintendent and Director McAnally make it down front, I'll start. We'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank the Kiwanis Club of Federal Way for its continued partnership over the years. Kiwanis Club has run the concession stand at Memorial Field since 1971, donating 50% of its proceeds to our district. At this time, I'd like to call forward Ed Plumley, current president of Kiwanis Club of Federal Way, Dennis Hulsey, past president of Kiwanis Club of Federal Way, and other Kiwanis members who are here tonight. I'm going to give them a minute to come on up front. Kiwanis is a global organization of volunteers dedicated to changing the world one child and one community at a time. We appreciate your steadfast service within our community and all you do to support our student scholars. Picture first. So they would like to present, I do believe, a check of $21,488 to the district that goes towards support of our school activities. Oh, and we're not done yet, so please stay up front, because we're not done with this part of the good news announcement. As part of this partnership, Federal Way Public Schools commits to donating 25% of the amount received from the Kiwanis Club of Federal Way to the Bridging a Gap program. Would Valerie Danforth of the BAG program please come forward so the district can present a check of $5,372? Right. The BAG program was established in 2014 to provide food for students in Federal Way Public Schools who might not otherwise have reliable source of nutrition over the weekends and during school breaks. Each week, a team of volunteers meets and stuffs backpacks with nutritious, easy-to-prepare foods. The filled backpacks are then dropped off at the school each Friday or the day before the school break and are distributed to the students by school staff. On Mondays, the students return their empty packs to the school and volunteers pick them up so that we are able to refill them the following week. We would like to thank our community partners for all that you do to support our scholars. Thank you so very much. I don't know where it's hooked. Hang on. We're on TV and I can't get it off of my shirt. Okay, just a minute. It's hooked. We had a little technical difficulty. Sorry about that. We're not done. Whew, okay. Congratulations goes out to the Thomas Jefferson High School girls bowling team for placing, woohoo! We don't even know what we're yelling about. Yes, we do. They placed third in the WIAA state tournament. Participation in extracurricular activities is in direct support of Strategic Plan Goal 3, active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers. Well, I was going to ask the team members to come forward, but it looks like they already have. So I'm going to ask you to kind of wave your hand when I say your name, okay? Whitney Lee, who are you? There's Whitney. Kusakura, who are you? Is Kuhi? There you go. All right. Abby Harris. Caitlin Larimore. Cassie Lee. Madison McCord. Haley Pollard. Coach Joseph Townsend and assistant coach Marty Lee. This year, the Raiders were undefeated, having won the 4A North Puget Sound League and the 4A West Central District title for the first time. In addition to winning the team state tournament, Whitney Lee took third place in the WIAA State Individual Bowling Contest. Coach Joseph Townsend was named the North Puget Sound League Coach of the Year. We could not be more proud of you for this achievement. Congratulations. I don't think they use bumpers, do they, when they bowl?
We at Federal Way Public School are proud of Decatur High School cheer team. They placed second in the state in the 3A, 4A division. Participation in extracurricular activities is in direct support of Strategic Plan Goal 3, active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers. Will the members of the cheer team please come forward to be recognized? Do wave your hand as I call your name. Brooklyn Andrews. Perla Avellino. Ty Good. Niayev James Ortiz. Teja Murray. Courtney Petrie. Jordan Reddix. Paulette Rogers. Keora Surat, Michaela Thomas, Casey Von Saving, Michaela Walker, Kayla Watkins, Trinity Zapareski, and Coach Angelica Watkins. In order to win, the team performed a 2-minute, 30-second routine that incorporated group stunts, pyramids, jumps, and a cheer section. Congratulations, Decatur cheer team. And that's just what I was going to say. Go Gators! Now, each week throughout the school year, the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association recognizes varsity athletes who are in good academic standing and exhibit an outstanding performance for the previous week based off nominations. Tonight, we would like to recognize Decatur High School scholar athlete Michaela Lambert. She was selected as a 4A female Washington Interscholastic Activities Association athlete of the week. Michaela, please come forward, and you have. Michaela had an outstanding game against Tai, scoring 15 points and pulling down 11 rebounds. This put them into the lead. Participation in extracurricular activities is in direct support of Strategic Plan Goal 3, active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers. Only one nominee per gender is chosen statewide in the 4A classification, and that's 60+ schools. This provides a perspective on how huge this recognition is for Michaela. We are so proud of you. Yay. Go Gators!
On February 18th, a number of our 5th grade through 8th grade students participated in the Washington State Music Educators Association Honor Ensembles at the National Association of Music Education All Northwest Regional Conference. These scholars auditioned and were selected to rehearse and perform with the other top student musicians under the direction of accomplished directors in their respective areas of music education. Please come forward when I call your name to be recognized. Taylor Harmer, alto. Emily DeBeer, alto. Mila Warden, alto. Sam Flores, baritone. June Hee Lee, violin. Caleb Chow, clarinet. Luckman Shilby, euphonium. I don't know. Cassidy Stanhope, tuba. Isaac Yee, viola. And Allie Fawn, alto. These scholars are 2017 All-State Band, Choir, and Orchestra participants. This accomplishment is in direct support of Strategic Plan Goal 4, Content Area Competence. Please join me in congratulating our scholars. We are so proud of you for going after your dreams. Thank you. Yeah. The littlest guy's got.
Our next announcement is in support of the district's strategic plan goal 2, Whole Child, Thriving, Confident, Responsible Individuals. Congratulations, scholars and staff at Sherwood Forest Elementary for receiving $4,500 from the U.S. Apples Association for its participation in Apples for Education, Buy an Apple, Help a Student program. Today, we'd like to acknowledge local leadership at Sherwood Forest who made this possible. Would Principal Alyssa Desart and PE Specialist Ryan Westhoff please come forward to be recognized? The community has worked hard this school year to encourage Sherwood Forest scholars to choose an apple when searching for a snack. Boxes of apples have been available in the school office every Friday thanks to previous grants and community donations. The newly awarded funds will allow Mr. Westhoff to purchase more apples and expand the program, so apples will now be available each week on Monday and Wednesday in addition to Friday. Congratulations, Sherwood Forest Elementary, for your commitment to encouraging our scholars' healthy eating habits, which has an impact on our scholars in the classroom and at school. Thank you. Next, in direct support of Goal 5, Persistence to Graduation of our strategic plan, Federal Way Public Schools is pleased to report that 99% of last year's 955 eligible 8th graders signed up for the College Bound Scholarship Program by the June 30th deadline. Governor in, statewide, over 30%, or 30,000 or 71% of eligible students signed up for the program. So we have a significant advantage there in terms of the percentage. Governor Inslee has recognized Federal Way Public Schools as one of the top school districts to exceed the statewide average sign-up rate of 71%. To commemorate this acknowledgement, the governor has presented Federal Way Public Schools with the Golden Star Award. I'd like to thank our middle school principals for their effort. I would also like to acknowledge the work of 3 of our district leaders. Deputy Superintendent Dr. Danny Pfeiffer, David Stone, and Vince Blauser. Please come forward to be recognized. The College Bound Scholarship helps Washington's income-eligible students reach higher levels of educational attainment. In combination with other state aid, it covers tuition at public college rates. eligible students sign up in middle school by June 30th of their 8th grade year to receive an early commitment of state funding. What a wonderful program. Congratulations and thank you. National School Board.
We're not done.
We're not done.
We're not done. I was like, they're leaving. Wait a second. We have two more things to do. Okay. So tonight we're honoring 4 Federal Way teachers who are National Board for Professional Teaching Standard Certification in 2016. National Board Certification is an advanced certification program designed to recognize outstanding teachers who meet high and rigorous standards that accomplished teachers should know and be able to do. With us this evening to stand in recognition of our newest National Board certified teachers are Francine Oishi, the district's program coordinator of teacher induction, mentoring, and support, and District National Board certified teacher Diane McSweeney, who was the facilitator of 3 of our National Board certified teachers being recognized tonight. I'll be reading the teacher's name, school, and certification area, and I hope you will join us up front. First is Laura Eberly, Olympic View Elementary, certified in middle childhood generalist. Stephanie Mateus, Sacagawea Middle School, certified in early adolescence science. Tiffany Salvador, Silver Lake Elementary, certified in early and middle childhood literacy, reading, language arts. And Marilyn Schumacher, Thomas Jefferson High School, certified in early adolescence, English language arts. National Board certified teachers have successfully demonstrated exemplary teaching knowledge, skills, and practices. The National Board candidacy process is demanding and has numerous benefits to students as teachers become even more self-reflective about their practice and increase subject area knowledge. Congratulations to our newest National Board certified teachers and your dedication and commitment to our scholars' bright futures. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ashley Barker. I am the principal of Federal Way Open Doors. Yes, and I have the honor and privilege of serving a group of young people who are graduating tonight, and I am so grateful they're here. Yep. First, I want to recognize our staff members who are here representing Federal Way Open Doors staff. It's their hard work and dedication of those who are here, but those who are on site tonight working side by side with students that I think makes us uniquely different as we're watching these young people achieve their goals. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about a young man named Billy Maroque. He started at Federal Way Acceleration Academy, now Federal Way Open Doors, in the summer of 2016. He came needing to finish 2 U.S. history classes. Bill completed these classes while also having a full-time job. Before attending Federal Way Open Doors, Billy attended Decatur, Federal Way High School, and Mariner High School. What I love about this is Billy came and interviewed me and selected Federal Way Open Doors as the place that he wanted to finish. For his next steps, Billy is considering a career in firefighting, and I know he will achieve that, and attending college with the help of our on-site supports, Seattle Education Access. We wish, as you do, Billy the best of luck in the future and feel confident in his future success. Next, I'd like to highlight Joey Flood. Yes. He actually attended Federal Way Open Doors, I think, before I did. He's been there for 2 years, so he's been slow and steady. He was actually one of our very first students. He came to us needing, this is huge, 7 credits. That's 14 classes. Once he figured out our platform and how to make it work for him, he worked through to the end, and now, tonight, will be a high school graduate. Next steps for Joey are getting his driver's license and finding work. He does want to go out and be in the real world and probably not take some online coursework for a while he decides what to do next. With the support of our staff on site, Seattle Education Access will be definitely talking to him about college. We won't let him relax too much. We're very fond, and actually we're going to miss these guys. We'll miss Joey being there, but we're so happy for his accomplishments. Next, we have Jeremiah Morad. Yeah. We're fans of Jerry too. He enrolled with us at Open Doors in January of 2017, so we've only known him briefly. Just to finish his high school and beyond plan, 2 English classes, 2 PEs, and 1 health. Sounds easy, right? For Jerry, I think it was. He was very diligent. He finished all his credits within the 2 months since being enrolled with us. He was doing Running Start at Federal Way High School and then attended Highline Community College. Jerry has big plans. Jerry plans to move to California and enroll in college where he'll study either nursing or architecture, or who knows, maybe both. Jerry has big goals and is always looking for other options. In fact, Jerry gave me some feedback. We'll be making some changes to our program based on Jerry's input. Federal Way Open Doors wishes Jerry the very best in the future, and we know we're confident in his success. I will now call each student forward individually to be recognized. First, Billy Maroke. Tassel, yep. Oh. Next, we'll have Joey Flood. Jeremiah Morad.
right, we'll give everybody a minute to exit out, those are leaving. All right, our next item on the agenda is our legislative liaison update from Director Drake.
So, lots is happening. Lots and lots of things are going on in the legislation at the moment. And I want to try and keep it really nice and straightforward and easy. So I'll try not to get too complicated with it. But if you want to chat more about any of it after the board meeting's over, I am so passionate about this lot that I'm very happy to share more. So I was very fortunate. It was a really amazing experience going to the legislative conference on February the 12th and 13th. The 12th, a Sunday, we heard from our new superintendent of instruction, Chris Reichert. We also had the governor come and speak, just laying the framework for so much of what's going on. Yes, with McCleary, but a lot of other issues that are going on also. There were hundreds of us at this conference, hundreds and hundreds. And then the next day, we, after having some very focused points to raise with our legislators, we then went to speak with our legislators, advocating on behalf of each of our school districts. So I was there. I met with 6 of our 9 legislators. There were some conflicts with timing, so sadly I could only meet with 6 and really focused on McCleary, the levy cliff, and facilities, because they're the things that are affecting us the most. And some of our legislators are Mike Pelliciotti, Christine Reeves. They are so on board. They're the ones, the 1059, the levy cliff bill that went through the House, they are the ones that made sure it would go through the House. We have some of our legislators, and they are Republicans. I'm not trying to be political here, but they are really, both through emails and through conversations on this Monday, the 13th of February, saying quite categorically, there is no cliff. No one's going to go off a cliff. Everything's fine. And we talked at some length about the impact it's going to have on each of our districts when we met with these legislators. Fast forward to this weekend, I was in touch with Dr. Campbell because at that point on Saturday, 1059, the levy cliff bill that went through the House, is still held up 35 days after it's cleared the House, cleared on the 23rd of January. It is still not being heard. So I got the specific information from Dr. Campbell on if we do not extend the present levy situation 1 year, how is this going to impact us? And just very broadly, it's going to affect us to the tune of $12 million. $12 million. And that represents 160 staff. That's the impact this could have if certain members of our legislation do not start doing what we feel they need to be doing. So I think it is of concern, and we gave the deadline of April the 1st. That's when the decision of whether there's a budget in place or whether the levy cliff is extended. April 1st is the deadline that we have here in Federal Way. So I sent this email to all our legislators on Saturday. I did hear back, let's give some positive, I did hear back from Mark Malosha, who said, thank you, Liz, and will do what he can to try and see if he can make a dent in some of the lack of action from certain other members. I think at this moment we have the governor's budget, we have House Bill 1843 that has passed out of the House, we have the Senate Bill 5607 that has passed through the Senate. So they've each passed through their particular houses, but they haven't been passing through the others. And we've got a brand new one, brand new to me, the Mullet Bill. Mullet is a legislative rep, Issaquah. This is Senate Bill 5825, and it had a hearing yesterday, and I don't know where that's going. So basically, we've got a lot of bills not really going where we need them to be going. But a sound of positive energy, apparently on Friday, the 8 legislators that were part of the education funding task were all present in Olympia on Friday. And there is a thought that because 2 bills have passed through houses, there's now room for some compromise. So that's where we are. The levy cliff 1059 is still not going anywhere, and that's of huge concern to all of us. That's my report.
Great, thank you. All right, next is public comment. We have 17 comments this evening, so I will hold you to 3 minutes. I will gavel you if you talk beyond the 3 minutes and stop you, so please be prepared to do that. Our first this evening comes from Commissioner Lynn England from Lake Haven.
Good evening, President McAnally, Vice President Wilson, directors, other directors, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell, and public as well. My name is Len England. I reside in the Valhalla service area, and tonight I'm coming to you in my official capacity as President of the Board of Commissioners at Lake Haven Water and Sewer District. As a partner with Federal Way Schools, Lake Haven participates in the Camelot Green Festival each year. We also participated in a STEM night that was a huge success, not to take away anybody's swan song there, but I'm sure it will be talked about. And our 2 entities have a much older tradition, one that spans about 20 years, and that is the Water Conservation Calendar Contest, as you can see on the board up there. The contest is open to all elementary age students within Lake Haven and the school district boundaries. That includes private schools and home schools. In the past, we have had over 600 entries to our contest, which only 13 get to be declared winners because we only have 12 months and a cover, right? So, but regardless of that, all 600 or all participants get some sort of trinket, that shows participation, and the schools get a bunch of calendars, and they, the students also get get some really cool little gifts too, mostly school supplies, a cool T-shirt with their individual design on it, and also some tickets to Wild Waves. So it's kind of a cool little thing for us. It's one of our very special meetings. The contest is an opportunity for Lake Haven to show members of our community the importance of water conservation and water quality. Additionally, we get to show off the amazing calendar designs. We want to encourage all elementary teachers and scholars to participate and submit calendar designs again this year. The talented drawings are always exceptionally well done. I personally look forward to this contest and giving away prizes every year. So please send in your contest calendars and participate. We've been a little bit down in recent years, but we really, really would like to see greater participation. Pertaining to STEM night, let me just say this, and I know I get 25 seconds. Huge success, and for scholars out there, consider civil service. And Lake Haven Water and Sewer District has a lot of STEM jobs. Civil engineers, professional engineers, we have a geologist on staff, we have accountants, computer professionals, lab technicians, and water and wastewater operators. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Elena Lewis concerning the ELA curriculum adoption.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. In our district, only 1 of 20 scholars read at or above grade level. Scholars of color disproportionately have lower grades in English language arts. Currently, we're working within a system that favors the teacher's instructional preferences over the objective learning needs of students. I can't interpret this as anything but failing to meet the needs of our scholars. Clearly, what we've been doing is not working. When a student reaches 9th grade with significant phonics gaps or with a seething hatred of reading, we've failed them. And let me tell you, many such 9th graders entered my classroom this year. We must change. We must afford these young people opportunity and hope. In September of this year, 28 students entered my 9th grade ELA classroom with gaps in their ability to decode phonics. In other words, they were not yet able to sound out each word they came across. Many of these students are excellent critical thinkers and succinct writers. They each could pinpoint when and sometimes even what they missed from school. They were missing vital literacy building blocks that prevented them from moving past a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level. In my classroom, we devoted 30 minutes of each period to reading. We used the resources provided, the ERLA, to identify and then tackle specific skills to fill the gaps. Now, 6 months later, nearly each one of these students can read any word they come across. Their vocabularies are burgeoning. Without the curated resources I, as a first-year teacher, used, these students would have fallen through the cracks once again. In my classroom, other readers explored new genres, found a series they just couldn't put down, practiced their fluency, or read for the pure pleasure of reading. With the ERLA, we can rely on empirical measure of scholar success. This is a system that identifies opportunities for growth in our scholars, as well as providing them a platform for celebrating successes. Research shows us that the highest performing districts have adoption cycles around common curriculum. Common curriculum, as proposed, delivers guaranteed and viable curated resources that can be adapted, modified, and expanded upon. Our collaborative work time during PLCs can become a space devoted to scaffolding challenging concepts and texts for our English language learners, emerging readers, and students with IEPs and 504s. It can become a space for raising the bar of rigor and finding ways to challenge our most accelerated readers and writers. Common curriculum and common resources will ask teachers to collaborate.
That's 3 minutes, but thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Josh Smith, ELA adoption.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Joshua Smith, and I am an English teacher at Todd Beamer High School as well. I've been a school teacher for 17 years, 15 of those here in Federal Way. Currently, the recommendations being considered for the adoption place too much emphasis on these commercial materials and not enough on novels and teacher discretion. This must be remedied or the language arts instruction of this district will be compromised. It's imperative that teachers are able to continue to use a variety of novels, at least 2 per year, and focus on small group and whole group instruction with those novels. Independent reading of novels, while also important, cannot substitute for the shared and guided reading of novels. Students must read novels, rigorous novels, in small groups and in whole class settings. Nothing less can be accepted. I have a long list of reasons of why this is appropriate and why this is good and how it meets the strategic plan, but 3 minutes doesn't give me enough time to do all that. I hope that you could schedule a work group meeting where we could talk more about this, but instead I'd like to give you an anecdote, one of my favorite moments from my time as a teacher. I was teaching a literature study group with 12th grade English students. And in that group, they were reading Kate Chopin's The Awakening. This is a novel about the struggles of 19th century women and their struggle to be independent. In this group was a student who was white, studious, and middle class, as well as an athletic African-American homeless student. These 2 young men paths rarely crossed on campus. But in my classroom, with that book, they crossed and converged every single day. These 2 opposites shared time every day with this book. And they weren't the only 2 that met. They were also meeting with Kate Chopin, the author of that book. This was not just a convergence across race, across class, across cliques. It was also a convergence across time and across gender. You see, that is what novels can do. They can build bridges between our students. If we don't have the opportunity to read novels with our students, there will be fewer bridges being built in Federal Way. Thank you.
Julia Ugart, I believe I might have pronounced your last name incorrectly. Ugarte, sorry about that. It's also on the ELA adoption and novel piece.
Good evening, Board President McAnaloy, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Julia Ugarte, and I last stood before this board 17 years ago to speak about the need to keep sports in all levels of academics. I am a product of this district, and now a parent with school-age children just up north. I'm more than a little surprised that what has compelled me to speak here again, after all this time, is the defense of books in the English curriculum. Here's what I know. I know the district is working hard to do what is best for its students and teachers. I know young teachers and all teachers should have as many resources as possible to help them help their students be successful. I know critical thinking is essential to the development of young minds, and all minds, really. But here's what I also know. Stories are necessary. Books and novels are essential. Art should be a staple of a student's academic diet, not a luxury. Passionate teachers are indispensable, and teachers must be able to believe in what they are offering their students. Mott, Meisner, Abrahamson, Vinson, Kirk, McNeely, Weber, who is technically one of my history teachers, but I include him in this list because 17 years ago, these English teachers taught me the importance of stories, novels, plays, poetry, not just as art forms, but as a way to interpret the world. They taught me how to empathize with other points of view, how to give speeches like this one, organize and deliver an argument, sift through source material and opinion, and how to write effectively. They encouraged my creativity and individuality. They taught me stories have value in everyday life and to stick up for them when I should. I don't know what the answer is to this issue at hand tonight. I know the solution isn't simple or black and white. I'm at the age now with 2 daughters of my own in or destined for the public school system that I realize there is so much I don't know or understand about the intricacies of this situation. But I am here to support these teachers, my teachers, who are working tirelessly to make public education the best it can be and to advocate for books, for stories, for poetry, for plays, for graphic novels, for flash fiction, for all of it to be an immovable, sizable bedrock of the English curricula in our public education system for all students. Because in the end, aren't the students and the skills we arm them with along the way to be successful, well-rounded adults what matters most? Thank you.
Rachel Puller? Sorry, I couldn't read your writing, so I apologize. Thank you.
Teacher writing. Good evening. Hello, my name is Rachel Pulu. I'm an English teacher at Decatur High School. I teach 10th grade regular ELA, and I teach 11th grade AP Literature. Oh.
I'm just smiling.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to stop. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying I was in your room a week ago.
Oh, yeah, yep. And also I teach a new class I developed called Hip Hop and Literature. Each year, hundreds of kids fail to pass our English classes, standardized tests, and even fail to graduate. I know that all teachers, why am I upset? I know that all teachers sincerely want to help change. Wow. And we need a paradigm shift. If we are truly committed to closing the gap for all students, we must have a common vision of success. But in order to achieve that shared vision of success, we must also be prepared to sacrifice. We must sacrifice our comfort, our personal preferences in literature, our individual measures of success, and unfortunately, countless hours we've spent crafting our own curriculum. But right now, we have to change. We have to change. The silver lining in all of this sacrifice is that the pain will not last long. System-wide improvements will improve grades. I can personally attest to this fact already. I just finished piloting the 2 curriculum options, and I am impressed. Even though I spent most of this past summer and previous years laboriously refining and developing my plan to teach novels this year, I decided to take a chance with this pilot and to gauge myself how effective these curriculum are. As a result, I've found that both of these curriculum options are rigorous, engaging, and despite that, the fact that novels are not a central part, they are amazing. Even though I don't want to sacrifice novels, I've grown to love teaching so much, I've realized that through this pilot and some research of my own, that whole class reading of the same novel is not always best for our students. What these 2 curriculum do offer, though, are shorter pieces of literature for whole class instruction and longer pieces of literature for small group and independent reading. In no way am I endorsing the elimination of novel studies altogether. Instead, we should shift the format of our teaching. We need to move away from whole class reading and towards small group reading, independent reading. Research shows that whole class reading does not significantly improve comprehension compared to reading several novels in small groups, but it does negatively impact attitudes toward reading. And so I urge us all to consider that, is that we should foster a love of reading in our students and not hold on to personal preferences, even though they may be unsettling. Thank you for listening to me.
Dave Abrahamson.
Thank you for having me tonight, Superintendent, Principal, or President and board members. I'm speaking from Todd Beamer High School as the AP Lit teacher, and I've debated a long time what I should address in the short time I'm being allowed to speak tonight. After much consideration, I've decided to avoid the things I don't know. I don't know all the proper jargon or current studies. I don't know how preparation for a test given to students in 10th grade will help seniors preparing for college or the job force. I don't know why curriculum has been deemed appropriate for the upper level classes, AP, IB, and the Cambridge program, is not suited for all 11th and 12th grade students. What I do know, I know I'm thankful to the Federal Way School District for affording me the opportunity to teach thousands of students over the last 24 years. Thank you. I know what it's like to experiencing being told by Mr. Adams at his son's funeral how proud he was his son was of reading 3 novels in my English class. The only 3 novels he read in his shortened life. I know the feeling of being caught off guard, of being told at a wedding that a student I had 20 years prior was reciting the nursery rhyme in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on the job as a longshoreman. He told me how he was surprised how often he thinks about that novel while he's at work. I know what it's like to have students in a class who have trouble staying awake, who seem to be largely disengaged. I also know what it's like seeing them 10 years later and being told that Cuckoo's Nest is still their favorite novel. I remember being struck by how badly they wanted me to believe them. It took everything I had to convince them they didn't have to go out to their cars at that time to show me they had their copies with them. I know I'm lucky to work alongside some excellent English teachers. I know I would love for my 2 children to have had the experience of being taught the Joy Luck Club by Kim Icahn. I know that a student in Josh Smith's English class will be exposed to an array of multicultural novels. I know Tori Giddings will teach Lord of the Flies with passion, and I know Emily Bray will teach A Brave New World with fire in her belly. I know Thomas Jefferson has many gifted teachers in their English department. I know because I watched Penny Bullock work her magic with a vast array of knowledge. I witnessed Karen Crable preparing tirelessly to present a novel. I saw Andrew Buchan make The Great Gatsby relevant to 10th graders. I know its prescribed curriculum may be helpful to a struggling or beginning teacher, but I know they're going to have to learn to cut themselves on their own teeth at some form. I know what it's like to study a novel in late June in preparation for the upcoming year, knowing that it's a complete labor of love, something that makes the summer magical.
Thank you.
I've been blessed to know what it's like to watch a light click in a
Okay, thank
student's
you.
mind when they ponder
Dave,
and analyze a
thank you.
novel
3
for
minutes
weeks.
is up. Thank you.
I know I wish I had more time, but thank you for what you gave me.
Sean Simpson.
Good evening, Director McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Tammy Campbell. I've worked as a teacher, instructional coach, and administrator for 23 years in Federal Way Public Schools. I serve as coordinator of secondary instruction in the Teaching for Learning department in my current role. Our work focuses on Goal 4 of our strategic plan. This ensures that every scholar achieves at the highest level and has access to rigorous and relevant curriculum and instruction. Tonight I will share with you the why and how of the ELA 9 through 12 ELA adoption process. In leading this work, we examine the why. Our overall district reading achievement data is behind all other like districts in this region. We rank 7th out of 8 according to the most recent Roadmap Region data report. We see disparity by race, ethnicity, and by various program subgroups. As scholars enter 9th grade, our data is showing students regressing or staying at the same levels. This includes students who met standard, they aren't making growth to higher levels of achievement, they are stagnant. If teachers of the same course at the same grade level are teaching different novels or using different resources, it not only creates gaps in scholar learning, it also makes it very difficult for teachers to effectively use the early release PLC time the board currently has allocated. Research shows that PLCs are most effective when teachers are able to collaborate and plan using the same resources to guide their instructional decisions. High-performing districts in our region and across the country are pulling teachers together to identify common resources and create curriculum guides to align teaching and learning expectations across grade levels and courses as a key equity best practice to ensure teaching and learning is not left to chance. We are catching up with the research in our district when it comes to shifting our instructional practices toward what are now considered the best practices related to adolescent literacy instruction. No longer is the whole class novel as traditionally taught the most effective or equitable way to ensure that all scholars are meeting standards and being challenged. Researchers Gay Ivey and Doug Fisher share a focus on themes and challenge the tradition of the English classroom, the whole class novel. This one-size-fits-all approach to the curriculum does not respond to the unique needs, strengths, or interests of adolescents. Frankly, it does not work in reaching the goal of improving literacy achievement and creating lifelong learners and readers. Finally, it is important to stress that we can no longer continue the same best practices and expect different results, or the same groups of scholars will prosper while others languish. By adopting high-quality common resources, we begin to develop a system across all schools of high support for our teachers and scholars. In leading this work, we believe teacher voice and partnership is crucial. Teacher input and voice is central to our process. It replicates the successful adoption process we led last year in our K-8 ELA adoption. The committee currently comprises 70% of teachers who participate in 25.5 hours of research and review to move forward collections inquiry by design for teachers to pilot. These resources met rigorous selection criteria from multiple organizations. In closing, I just want to share that we value teacher voice and believe they and other key stakeholders are central to the integrity of this process in providing all scholars have a guaranteed and viable curriculum and are not left to chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Tori Giddings.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Tori Giddings, and I have been an English teacher at Todd Beamer for the last 5 years. I'm here tonight to speak about my concerns regarding the new English curriculum. Before speaking to these concerns, I would like to assert that I see great value in having a common curriculum. Ensuring that all of our students have access to rigorous, culturally relevant texts is essential. Vertical alignment has especially been lacking in our district, and having consistency in that regard is paramount to the success of our students. I am not here to argue against a curriculum or common assessments. My concern is that 2 pilot programs for the English curriculum do not provide options for guided novel studies. One pilot does offer 2 plays and a singular graphic novel over the course of 4 years, but this does not feel sufficient. I recognize the district aims to include shared reading experiences in the form of literature circles through a Just Right supplemental curriculum adoption, but these experiences are not synonymous with guided novel studies. Reading a novel as a whole class provides students an opportunity to engage with complex texts. It allows educators to teach theme, motif, symbolism, and close reading in ways that are much richer and deeper than from shorter texts. Our standards aligned from the Common Core even ask students to explore the development of these issues over the course of a text, which suggests that a text needs to have enough length to explore these topics in depth in order for students to meet the state expectations. The best way to have our students demonstrate proficiency with these standards is to provide them with the adequate tools or novels to achieve them. More important, however, is the reality that whole class novel reading creates space for students to grapple with the human condition. English teachers have never just been tasked with teaching reading and writing, but with teaching the abstract concepts of life. We use novels as a way to provide students with the space to explore their own identities and to learn to appreciate the diversity of others. We use novels to encourage student discourse regarding morality and other philosophical topics. Novels speak to people, and English teachers provide the stage for students to breathe life into those discussions so that they may grow intellectually and emotionally. As educators, we have an obligation to ensure that our students become reflective, empathetic, and productive members of society. The whole class novel teaches these skills and other life lessons in an unforgettable and unparalleled manner. We owe it to our students and our community to not abandon this fundamental and influential teaching method in the pursuit of higher test scores. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Bray.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Emily Bray, and I am currently an English teacher at Todd Beamer High School. I think we can agree that what we all want is what's best for our students. I am here tonight to recommend that the school board ask that any high school English curriculum that is adopted and that we choose to move forward includes some guided novel reading experiences for all students, grades 9 through 12. Currently, the district has decided that in the space of time, money, and all the other things that are involved, The advanced courses like honors, pre-AP, pre-Cambridge, IB, may continue to use their current curriculum, which includes shared novel experiences. These students will have access to group discussion, analysis at a higher level, and will learn that thinking through something that is long and difficult can be rewarding. These advanced students will continue to be prepared for higher level learning, college, and the workforce, which is what we want for all of our students. However, there is a lack of the shared novel reading experience in the proposed curriculums for all other students. This keeps our other students from the possibility of learning the rigor, tenacity, drive, empathy, and critical thinking that those other classes are providing. I worry especially for my students at Todd Beamer, who are growing more diverse and more impoverished every year that I work there, that without access to honors, IB, pre-AP, all of that, which we do not offer at our campus, they will be denied the chance to prepare for AP classes and college based just on the apartment complex on which they live or the street where they happen to be. I worry that an entire high school will be barred from the aha moments I see with my current students as we read and discuss challenging books together. That an entire high school will be unprepared for higher level learning. That an entire high school will learn that advanced novels and learning are not for them. That when presented with opportunities for higher learning, they will languish because we have decided that what was good for those advanced classes was in fact not good for them. So I hope that the school board hears the teachers that don't necessarily want to move away from a curriculum. I think we've all been arguing we need some alignment here for as long as I've been here. But that we see the benefits of including guided novel studies within that curriculum, and that we prepare all of our students for higher level learning every day. That we don't take certain classes, certain students, certain schools, and give them some sort of advantage that other people might not have because they're not able to access the guided novel studies within their classrooms. Thank you.
Dustin Abrahamson.
Hello, Board of Education. Thank you for letting me speak. Hello, public. Director McNaloy. So I came here, and there's a lot of things I would like to talk about, but take it that I'm 22 years old, I just graduated from college, I would like to offer a perspective that I don't know would be offered otherwise. So we're talking a lot about preparing young people for the world ahead, but I can reflect on my experience at college, and I can think about the two things that really affected my experience the most there, which was one, a lot of different professors of mine teaching what they loved, teaching their life's work, their passion, giving their unique perspectives. We all have a very different perspective on the world, different perceptions of what our realities. I cannot fundamentally understand your experience as you cannot fundamentally understand mine. So when I think about my favorite classes, one of them taught by Juan Felipe Herrera, the National Poet Laureate, the first Chicano National Poet Laureate. His experiences growing up as a migrant farm worker and going through life and becoming the first national poet, when he taught those classes and going through group discussions, he was able to craft that curriculum with what he knew best, with what his passions were. And in those group discussed, in those big classrooms with 60 different people, when he was able to engage and cross those different racial, class, gender lines, when we were able to get past our assumptions of what we just read. I read a novel, I had one perspective, but the kid sitting across from me, the other young man, he had a totally different perspective. And so these group discussions of novels, when you're going through with a professor who is in love with what he's teaching, and going through with students who are offering different perspectives, the amount of learning, the amount of how much that shapes your own view of the world, how you interact with people, that's crucial. So when I ask you, when you're looking at changing the curriculum and English studies in Federal Way schools, ask yourself, are you really preparing them for the life ahead? When they interact with other people, if they go to college and they have to go through and navigate tons of professors' classes who all have different focuses, different expectations of their students, different curriculums. Every single class is very different. If they are all just used to the same curriculum that was one dumbed down, or they did not get the same opportunity as other schools to go through some of these class discussions of novels, which came up throughout many disciplines, throughout the social sciences, history. I was a history major, American Ethnic Studies major, and American Indian Studies minor. Those were very interdisciplinary majors. Each one of them, novels came up a lot, not just English. This is affecting their learning if they go to college, and even if they don't go to college, it's affecting the rest of their lives and their perceptions of the world. So please, when you're thinking about this, think about what's best for them and what's best preparing them. Thank you.
Thank you. Libby Ray.
Good evening, Board President McAnaloy, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. I have a 9th grader and an 11th grader at Decatur, and Ben has Miss Pulu. Hopefully he's doing his homework. I'm currently a substitute teacher in the district, and I do elementary school, sometimes middle school. In front of you, you should see an actual write-up of an incident. My first concern is discipline, kind of at the elementary level, because that's what I'm at usually. A 10-year-old girl was called the B word, and the boy continued to use the F word. Okay, so a write-up was given, and the consequence was a redirection by the counselor. He had been redirected 3 to 5 times already. And I think parents would be shocked to find out that a call home was not issued by the assistant principal or the principal. And I will, or even by the counselor, I will say that some substitutes, we will avoid schools that are really soft on discipline because we don't want to be called names. The kid comes back to school or back to our class 5 seconds later with no change of behavior. We feel that for this type of behavior, a call home should have been mandatory, not necessarily optional. If my daughter was called that at the age of 10 and I found out that the boy's family, parents, whoever he lives with, weren't notified of what he's saying in school, I would be really disappointed and pretty much appalled. We can't guarantee that his parents will even care, but we just feel that it should be a standard policy within the schools. Because the school discipline amongst various schools is really different from one office to the other. Okay, my second concern is teacher evaluations. It has been, we feel that teacher evaluations should be random. They should not be scheduled, they should not be planned. It has been proven that some teachers consistently will issue a test when they are scheduled to be observed. So then they don't have to be observed. And then schedules get busy and they can end up not getting evaluated that year with how busy schedules can be. We feel it could be random. If they end up having a test, so be it. But to purposely schedule a test so you don't have to be evaluated does not seem right. And the third concern is assessment retakes. You can have 2 history teachers and you're going to take a retake on an assessment. You get 20 out of 20. Some teachers will issue a 4, which is equivalent to an A. Some teachers will issue a 3. They will say on a retake, you will not be given a 4 regardless of your results. 20 out of 20, 10 out of a 10, you will not be given a 4, you will be given a 3. So you have 2 teachers, same subject, 2 different policies. We feel the district should have a consistent policy of when you retake an assessment. You'll have kids transfer into a different class so they can get the 4 instead of the 3 after 20 out of 20.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Is it Charisse Tucker? Sorry, again, I can't read the writing, so.
That's okay. Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Karis Tucker. I currently have 4 children enrolled in the district from elementary through high school. I have 2 main concerns that I would like to address with you tonight. The first is a lack of parent communication in several vital areas. As parents, we get an overabundance of calls and emails regarding early dismissal, bus delays, conferences, and things like that. but we get little to no communication regarding core academic issues such as changes to curriculum, textbooks being replaced with online resources, removal of rigorous curriculum. Instead, we tend to hear these things via rumor or innuendo. If parent involvement and support is vital to scholar success, then parents need to be notified of these types of changes so that we can properly support our children at home. I'm also bothered that parents are only notified about disciplinary issues when police are called, and sometimes not even then. I want and expect to be given the opportunity to have discussions with my own children when sexually explicit or violent behavior has occurred. My second concern is in regards to what appears to be, to many parents, the systemic dismantling of highly capable programs. We are told that highly capable is still offered, yet course rigors have lessened. Many of the elementary schools no longer offer a designated high-cap classroom and instead are using clusters. In theory, the concept of clusters sounds great, but it has some major flaws. It is seeming to be causing some social strain. Struggling students are hesitant and embarrassed to ask their peers for help, and just as often, the advanced students feel awkward offering help. High-cap students are also expected to do a high amount of self-teaching, much of which is online, as part of their work. Independent learning and research is a vital skill needed throughout life, but elementary students still need a high amount of teacher guidance and hands-on involvement. Clusters have also tended to move away from project-based learning. Project-based learning has been shown to increase interest in STEM, and if we are striving to become a STEM-focused district, then we need to continue to focus on project-based learning. I'm also alarmed that pre-algebra was removed from 6th grade Cambridge without parent notification again. It is shocking and frankly disturbing to me to learn that my 2 younger children will not be allowed to follow the same academic pathway as my 2 older children, despite only a 7-year spread from the oldest to youngest. If scholars have shown success in more rigorous courses and curriculum, then why are we removing them? I understand the need for continuity across the schools, but rather than lowering rigorous standards to the lowest common denominator, why aren't we using the successful programs as the bar that we strive to reach? Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Jackson.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Stephanie Jackson, and I have 2 children at Lakota Middle School, 1 in 6th grade and 1 in 8th grade. I'm disappointed mainly with the district for their failure to challenge a segment of the school population. This district continually seems to marginalize our high-cap students, stunting their potential rather than inspiring their dreams and instilling a sense of inquiry within them. I see this mainly through 3 different things at the school. One is Cambridge. Cambridge is something that our kids were sold in elementary school. We were very excited about. It's kind of sold as this great, rigorous curriculum that your kid's going to get. You apply to it. You have to have certain requirements to meet to get into it. Well, now I've come to find out we don't have Cambridge curriculum. We've never purchased it. The teachers are not taught how to teach Cambridge. The test that they're supposed to be given at the end of 8th grade is not given. So I feel like it's very disingenuous for the district and the school board to say they're offering this rigorous program that they're clearly not offering, because none of the requirements for that program are being met at the school. In conjunction, as Karis mentioned, with the math, my son went in and was on a certain path for math, and it was great, and he's doing really well. And I find out now that nothing was notified to the parents. My daughter was started at a year less than my son in the same school. She's 2 years younger, and she now will graduate from high school a year less than him in math because the school, some reason, decided to not keep the same rigorous math program that my son is involved in. The third is what Karis was talking about, too, a lot of not notifying parents of changes and making changes without us being made aware of them, and then it ends up being a rumor. So then you don't know what's going on, and you hear things from teachers or you hear things from parents, and you're trying to find out, and it ends up being just exhausting to constantly have to fight to try to get information. So now the new thing we're hearing is that they're going to start blocking to get more English time. Well, that would be fine, except to block and give English more time, then you're taking away from other things. So if we're talking about making a district that is very STEM motivated, how can we be taking time away from science and history and music? The music program at Lakota is phenomenal. The idea that we're going to have to start taking away from other core important subjects to try to cater to one thing, I think is really short-sighted of the district, and it really is hurting our kids overall. So I kind of implore the board and the district to really stop making us work so hard to help our kids who really can't perform at a really high level, and allow them to get really rigorous course material that they can really succeed at. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean McDowell.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Sean McDowell. I am the proud father of 3 children who are in the Federal Way School District, one in junior high and 2 in elementary school. I'm also a professor at Seattle University, where I direct the University Honors Program. I'm the guy to whom prospective students address their letters of application to get into the program, and I'm the one who chairs the committee that admits them to the program. And I can tell you that based on what I've seen over the last six years in watching my kids go through the school system, many of your best and brightest students, based on the trends that I'm seeing right now, would have a very hard time getting into that program. Because as some of the parents have been saying so far tonight, the movement to standardize has often, at least in the realm of highly capable services, come at the expense of the top 10%. I think it's very important that the district is working to help everyone achieve distinction as students. But at the same time, we cannot take those students who already have some predilections for reading or who have some talents. We can't put weights on them and to hold them back. I see problems at every stage, actually, of the designation of highly capable in the district. I see problems at the testing stage where people are designated as highly capable. I see problems in the programs that are supposed to be meant to serve highly capable students. And I see problems also in attempts to cluster, as some parents have said, and as well as in the adoption of the IRLA curriculum. Now, the IRLA curriculum is a good curriculum idea. That is, we're trying to differentiate more carefully than we have in the past. But in practice, it is very problematic because many of the outcome goals that are listed at each of the levels are very uneven in terms of what they're measuring. Some of them are too advanced even for high school students, yet they become the means of keeping other students back. Some are absurdly simple at all the different levels. It seems like the curriculum is designed to keep highly capable students at particular levels without enabling them to move past. Kurt Vonnegut has a short story called Harrison Bergeron. Perhaps some of you have read it. It begins, "It was the year 2083 and everyone was finally equal." The story is not about elevating everyone to a standard of recognition. It's about actually making sure everyone is exactly the same through standardization. So if you're a ballet dancer and you're very talented, you have to carry extra weight because you can't jump higher than the person next to you. It's a very funny story, but it's also a cautionary tale, which is to say that there are a lot of us, all of us have different kinds of gifts and skills, and these need to be nurtured in a more positive way. Thank you very much.
Brian Jackson.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, Board Dr. Campbell. It's exciting to me being here tonight and listening to teachers, educators, parents who are impassioned to talk about their students or their children or the program in general. But sitting here, what I hear is displeasure. I hear people that feel like they've been let down. A big piece of that, in my mind, just hearing this, is the communication of it. We were surprised to learn they changed the path. We were surprised to learn the curriculum has changed. How are these novels no longer going to be presented to our scholars as they move forward. What I would like to see is more parental involvement, parental advisory groups, committees, something that can be instituted and brought into this discussion of change earlier, further upstream, so we don't have displeased parents and educators at this point in the game because it's too late. A week or so ago, we met with Dr. Campbell and some other educators, and when we were discussing back and forth some of the things that we had heard, that we are seeing, and made suggestions, oh no, we're going to have to, that's a 2-year plan. That's a 2-year fix. We can't do anything for 2 years. Well, I've got 2 junior high age scholars, and by the time things are discovered, potentially corrected, and we're able to develop stronger overall programs, my children are going to be graduated from high school potentially. So what we're doing here is for younger age, and all I ask is that we're brought into the discussion before it's too late, because what I hear from the group is a lot of, hey, it's too late, and I don't accept that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Wallace.
Good evening, President McAlenoy, the rest of the school board, and Dr. Campbell. My name is Lisa Wallace. I have a son who is in a functional core program in elementary school. He has a lot of medical concerns, and I am in constant fear of a particular concern. He has epilepsy, seizure disorder. You will be given, I believe, this evening, a protocol that needs your approval to allow, other than the school nurse who is only there once a week and every other week for another half of the day, to administer a life-saving seizure medicine for him. And I implore you to approve this. I know that there is some concern about legalities. I know there is some weight on the fact that 911 can be called and paramedics can come to the school in suburban areas. However, I have experience through calling 911 myself, at least 15 to 20 minutes before they arrive on site. And within that time, my son could potentially have life-altering repercussions from a seizure. If you need any information, his neurologist and his team is more than willing to provide medical reasons why this is imperative for certain children to be allowed to have this medicine administered to them. I also know that some schools have full-time nurses. However, it is really catastrophic for a child like mine to be moved from the program he's well established in with his peers and his support system just to be allowed to have this life-saving medicine on the occasion that he might have a seizure at school. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea McDowell.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. First of all, thank you for your hard work on behalf of all of our children. I truly appreciate it, and this opportunity for public comments. My name is Andrea McDowell, and I am tied to this guy and the little guy back there. I am also a professor at Seattle University and an administrator there, and I have 3 kids in the Federal Way school systems, 2 in elementary and 1 in middle school. And I want to say that we heard the Lakota Choir and Orchestra concert last night, and I was in tears. It was amazing. They are incredible. I could speak to several of the comments that the other parents made. My daughter going through finishing algebra, geometry this year. My youngest, who we transferred out of one school after he was slashed across the face with keys last year, and nothing was done. However, tonight I want to talk with you about another issue, which is music education in Federal Way. Extensive research demonstrates the link between music education and higher aptitude in other academic areas, especially math. And I want to just hit a couple of highlights of these quotes from different sources. Music making strengthens brain functions. It's a misunderstanding to view the benefits of music education as secondary to other subjects. Elementary schools with superior music education programs score higher on standardized tests, regardless of socioeconomic disparities among the schools or school districts. In the 21st century, skills are essential to employers. The arts impart practical, employable skills from project management, team building, and effective time administration to leadership, cooperation, and collaboration. And yet the deliberate targeting of these programs and willful mischaracterization of them as secondary to STEM robs not only students, but also parents and communities of one of the most honest public measures of student achievement and success. Yet, the Federal Way Public School District plans to expand English and math blocks, directly jeopardize musical instruction, particularly at the middle school level, and directly conflict with the district's stated emphasis on whole child education. Instead of altering schedules to undermine such programs, Federal Way Public Schools must commit to bolstering music and art programs to support holistic education, encourage individual expression, and provide curricular opportunities that in turn uplift performance in traditional academic areas. According to its website, the Federal Way Performing Arts and Events Center will serve as, quote, a home base for extending a wider vision to cultivate an interest in the arts in our youth. Collaborations with local schools and existing arts groups will offer opportunities to make the arts an integral part of education, end quote. The website also states that in its programmatic commitment to Federal Way's diverse community, a key is enhancing opportunities for Federal Way students. Please give these considerations. Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Campbell?
So first of all, I want to say thank you for caring so deeply about what matters most, which is our scholars. The red thread across all of your comments was wanting what's best for our children. I assure you that our team works every day just for that purpose and that purpose alone. I will share with you that when you look at the data, out of the 8 roadmap regions, Federal Way ranks 7th out of 8th. So that tells us that we can't continue to do what we've always done. We have to look at our practices and get better. What I will also tell you is this: I will never tell our teachers to teach to a test. It's never about that. Ultimately, if our kids have skills, they're going to do well no matter the measure. But if they don't have the skills, they're not going to matriculate on to those opportunities. And it's always been about skills for us. But when they are not performing at a level that the other 8 districts are, that tells us something about our performance. That's why all of the processes that we're using, specifically as it relates to adoptions, we're going to have teacher voice. We had 40 teachers come together to look at materials and to make recommendations, 40. And this has been long thought out and communicated all throughout. We've met with many of the teachers who shared some of their concerns today. Ultimately, we will not have everyone agree with us, but what I'm committed to is a process to identify materials that we know are vetted. Right now, what we have is individual teachers creating individual curricula across each of our schools. We know that our scholars move from school to school, If they go from one class to the next, the novel that they may have learned in one class may not even be taught in the next, and we have quite a bit of mobility, about 20%. When you look at high-performing districts, almost all of them are doing what we're moving towards. So I commit to continuing the work of Teacher Voice. I commit to using high-quality literature. We're not focusing on one set of scholars, but our goal is to ensure that every scholar reaches their full potential. And that's what I've tasked this group to do. So this isn't a top-down approach. This is a teacher approach with Teacher Voice. I could go into a lot of detail, but I will say that. The last thing that I will say, as a district, it is upon us and incumbent of us to have a process for selecting materials. It's required by law that we vet the materials to be sure they're appropriate. And that's something that hasn't been done in a while, and we're intent on doing that well. And we'll continue to improve upon our communication and take the feedback from the group. But this group of teachers will make a recommendation as we move forward. I will also say, after meeting with the parents at Poverty Bay, you're right, we talked about the realistic timelines to do some of what you said. Because even to do an adoption takes a year. I could say to you, yes, I'll make all of those things happen. One of the things that came up with that conversation happened at a school. We're moving away from a school-by-school approach to looking at a systems approach. But you can't do that with the blink of an eye. You have to do that with input and voice, and we'll continue to do that. So those are just some big ideas about process, and I'll continue to ask our teams to be reaching out and to be gathering feedback to construct solutions for our scholars. I want to also talk a little bit about an opportunity that I had to sit with the governor to talk about the need to address the levee cliff, which we know, and I heard Director Drake talk about the $12 million gap that's at stake if they do not do that. I was one of 3 superintendents who had that opportunity to advocate for Federal Way, because we know in Federal Way that our resources are a little bit more of a stretch because we're not funded in the same way that some of our like districts are. So I want to thank Governor Inslee for affording me with that opportunity. We had over 3,000 scholars come to our STEM night. They were there hearing from local universities, talking to some of our business partners, Boeing, Alaska, the trades, Microsoft, and seeing robotics and some of their peers participate in STEM. I will also say, in terms of the arts, we will have a Lighthouse school that is a STEAM school. Nautilus will have a STEAM focus. And we value the arts and will continue to illustrate that throughout our community. As a mother of 2 children who participate in orchestra and band, I share your passion for the arts, and I know that that represents and gives the scholars an opportunity to be whole and to express what we know most about being human, which is the appreciation and love of music. Ultimately, I want to thank you for caring enough, and I also want to restate our commitment to doing the very best. I also hope you heard the diverse needs from different constituents. Educating and transforming a system is not simple. And ultimately, we're committed to the task, and we know that this is going to take time and effort, but with our community, we believe we can do anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. All right, school board comments. Director Drake, would you like to start us this evening?
I'd prepared to talk about the very varied few weeks I've had as a school board director. Some of the opportunities I have of going into schools, of going to Decatur Big Band Night just a few days ago, Saturday, and to talk about, with policy governance, an important part of my role is knowing what is going on in our schools. And as I look out to our audience here, there are just so many people I have personally worked closely with. And I echo what Dr. Campbell said about how much I appreciate you coming out. I know, having worked with you, how much you care about our scholars, and I know that's the reason you're here. I also need you to know that I am aware of the adoption policy and some of the concerns, some of the heartfelt words that have been spoken here this evening. And I really, again, appreciate you coming out. This last couple of weeks, I have had the opportunity of meeting with City Council members, Director Gregory and myself, shared what's going on in the school district, what's going on in the city, building that connection so that our school district can be the strongest it can be. I attended the Green Gables Data Summit when students go home early. I was in working with the teachers and looking at the way in which our strategic plan is rolling out and the process of identifying the goals. They have goal 2 and goal 4, and the work that they are doing, key strategies to make every one of our students successful. As I said, I went to the Decatur music evening, and I had tears in my eyes. As a principal, both at TJ and Beamer, and I'm looking at Nick Anderson across the room, my heart was all around embracing the arts, the music within our school, because I value our whole child philosophy. I attended Adam Smith's roundtable conversation, our congressman, about public schools. And what he said was, I am 100% supportive of public schools, and I am your servant, and I am here to help you. And I actually raised the issue of the private-public partnership that we have and the opportunities our students within our district have for choice. And he embraced what we're doing here. And the STEM evening. I queued up for a good 10 minutes just to get in the door. The message is getting out, and I really felt proud of our district, Dr. Campbell, of the way in which our scholars and parents came to think about career opportunities. I mean, you know, I've been in education 40 years, and I don't know how many of you know the first 10 years of that experience were in elementary schools, teaching reading. That is my heart. That's where I come from. And again, I appreciate your comments and look forward to the way in which we are listening to teacher voice, but our ultimate responsibility has got to be to our scholars.
Director Eto.
I also want to thank the members of the team and also community members that came out today to talk. The public perception is their reality, and it's very difficult to get the whole picture speaking in 3 minutes. But I appreciate the fact that people have taken the time out to come out and provide their perspective, because really without presenting those perspectives, we have no opportunity as a team to address them. I do believe that the results in the past definitely show that there has to be some changes made. It's not good to have teachers working in isolation. There's certainly no doubt that teachers that did work in that environment did produce excellent results, and that's not to say that others were not trying. I think what we've done here is we've got a superintendent that thinks strategically, wants alignment in everyone's effort, and everyone's effort is great and all focused in terms of getting great results from our scholars. And so it's all about alignment and being force multipliers so that we have a compounded process in getting kids out the door, graduating with all the skills that they need, and that hasn't been happening. And so we have to trust, I think, as a board, I think it'd be very a big mistake if we were to revert in any way away from policy governance and start to try to tinker with the operations. We hired a superintendent who's working with the team in a collaborative manner, and they're the experts And what we've done is we've interpreted the public's desires for what they want to see coming out of this school system, provided the superintendent with the ends that we want to see, and she has come up with the team to present a strategic plan to achieve those ends. And I think we have to give her that opportunity to do that and not undermine that effort by coming in and trying to tinker with what their team has deemed to be the best. I understand that there's going to be always debate regarding that, the decisions that come out of a process like that. But I think we need to trust that process. But it's important that we have the public involved, and I really do appreciate the fact that they use this opportunity to convey their views. Did want to touch on the fact that we got great support for the STEM night at Federal Way High School. And not only from the community members, but also from the police department, fire department, Joint Base Lewis McChord, the local junior colleges, architect engineer firms that are based right here in Federal Way. It was great to have them out and show support and give the scholars an opportunity to see how they can get a career with a living wage right in this area through the educational opportunities that abound. So it was really a fantastic first time event, and I hope that continues with the strong support. The other thing that I wanted to mention was the multicultural night at Panther Lake. It was great to see these global citizens come out and show with pride and share their history and their culture. Based on the comments of one of the performance groups, there must have been some hint of discussion relative to a boycott. And I'm so happy that they decided to come out and represent, because it's so important not to be a continuing silent member of the society. So my hat's off to those folks that came out, felt safe, provided great opportunities to interact with the public, and made performances, made videos, made displays to show that we are a truly diverse community here in Federal Way, and we welcome the diversity in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Wilson?
As I listened to the comments, and I want to thank you for all the input, regardless of where you are on this continuum of agreement, disagreement, or somewhere in between. I just continue to reflect about how our student population and our scholars and their families have changed over a number of years. And some folks that provided input talked about 6 years and 10 years, and some folks have been crafting in their trades for 25, 35 years. And for that, you are to be recommended, because it's a very difficult place to be. I also know our scholars have changed. And I also know that Dr. Campbell's efforts are very young, and that she has been here a little over 18 months. And so the data we're looking at and the information we're looking at the academic holes we're looking at, and the opportunity gaps we're looking at were there long before Dr. Campbell ever stepped foot in Federal Way, and had the strategies and the instructional supports that were in place, and the focus that was happening, and the support for teachers that was happening in classrooms been what it should have been, or been what it could have been, we wouldn't have our data that's telling us differently. This is not a blame. This is about making sure we're meeting the needs of all students. This is about making sure that things are relevant, that they're rigorous, that students have opportunity. And I don't think I've heard, we'll never do this and we'll never do that. What I've heard is we have a process, and we're following the same type of process we followed when we did the KADLA adoption just last year. And I know from being in the district for a period of time and on the board for not so long, we haven't done an adoption. I've been on the board 5 years and never been part of a curriculum adoption. I've been a parent in the district for longer than that, never been part of a curriculum adoption. What we're doing is meeting the needs of scholars in a way that's never been done before. It's also a way, I think, to make sure we're supporting teachers. And quality teachers need quality materials, and they need support. and they shouldn't be spending all of their time creating and recreating assessments and tests for students when the craft they're there to do is to teach and to inspire and to motivate and to move young people on to their next step, wherever that may be. I have no question that the same thing is going to happen in our high school adoption as did in our K-8 ELA adoption. And I will say change is difficult, and I would be the first one to tell you that. I get used to doing something, and it's difficult to make changes. But we also need to agree that one size does not fit all, and our current practice is not meeting the needs of all of our scholars. So I would ask you to think about your scholars that are in front of you and not think about what they aren't, but think about the potential of what they can be and how what we're doing right now is going to support each and every one of them. I also had two other small things I wanted to share, and one is that as a district, although Dr. Campbell is young in her history here, she's making great strides in voice for Federal Way across the state, and the Washington State School Directors Association does a communication called WASDA Direct that goes to all school board directors, superintendents, and other professionals in the state. And this February's issue highlighted Federal Way's preparedness of scholars for success, specifically focusing on the work we're doing around STEM and partnering with corporations, with companies, with organizations to provide our scholars real-world STEM experiences. And I'll say this came out before the Expo came out, so the Expo could probably be added to as a part two. So I was very proud to have that be there, and I know folks from across the state are looking at what we're doing and are excited for us and are looking to take some of what we're doing and do the same in their districts. The other thing I just wanted to give was a shout out to Therese Moore, and we'll probably, I'm certain, do something later on, but Therese has been in the district for 14 years working around family engagement and was recently honored by Education Week as one of 14 leaders to learn from. And she was the only educator from Washington State that was selected, and specifically around family engagement as a strategy to improve academic outcomes for the scholars in Federal Way. I think what's different around Federal Way is we've been working on family engagement for a long time, and that we're districts that has given families opportunities and parents opportunities to become leaders. And I will say that as a parent in the district, I wouldn't be sitting on the school board without my involvement in the leadership opportunities at the district level, and that I know of two other board directors also, Angela Griffin, who sat next to me, and also Amy Bronson-Doherty, also, who came through our district through engaging and getting involved in family engagement. And so it was really nice to see the district's work being elevated to a national level and being held to such high esteem. So thanks.
Thank you. Director Gregory?
It's hard to know where to begin. I would say that this is the very best board meeting I've been to my entire 3 years. Finally, we're not talking about how noisy the buses are that wake you up in the morning. We're talking about what's happening to our kids in the classroom and are our kids prepared. And we as a board, well, let me say this. When I came into this district, I was very discouraged. I felt very strongly that we were failing everyone. We were failing our students, we were failing our teachers. No one was being held accountable because our system was not created for that. And particularly when we began to really dig into the data to see where our students are, we have to be realistic. We have to accept the fact that in many cases we're not doing well. And in a district that is as diverse as ours, the most diverse in the state, we've got a lot of work to do. And it's an opportunity. It's a real opportunity for our students. But for the adults, it's a real hard job. And for the school board, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, and that's okay, because I don't always make the right decisions. And, you know, I come from a teaching background, and I come from a union background, and I'm very strong advocate of teachers. And so I'm often the naysayer, quote unquote, when we first bring up ideas. And I've wrestled with this question of the curriculum in high school and the issue of novels. And I have to tell you, Dave, I'd love to take a class from you. I'm a reader and I love novels. I also worry that we've got kids that are in these classes that don't have the basic skills to really do it on their own when they leave your class, because you're guiding them so well that they are getting something out of it. But can they do it on their own? And our data shows we struggle mightily with some of our kids at the high school. And so I believe that where we are now, and maybe I'm rationalizing, but I believe that we will be able to do both. Maybe not as well as we could, and maybe we'll change. But having a curriculum that ensures that our students have the basic skills they have to have, but also not requiring specific curriculum in the AP classes and others, I think gives us a happy medium. Now, that I don't expect you to agree to me, and maybe I'm rationalizing, but that's where I'm coming down. The parents that came, I am so pleased that you came and spoke the way you did. And we had a retreat last week. We have a retreat every week, I think. But this board has done 50 hours of its own work, or at least, just in learning what we have to know to move forward in a very complex world. And one of the things that we raised, in fact, Board President McAnally raised it again with us, and we all agree, we just don't have the answer, and that is, how do we best communicate in a two-way with our community? And please, if you have ideas of how we can facilitate that, it would be wonderful, because there's a lot of opportunity out there. But, you know, we never get enough information because we hear what people tell us. We don't often hear all of the pieces, nor do we need to, because the superintendent has a responsibility of making this operation work. But we've got those higher level decisions to make, and it's very hard to feel like you really have all of the information that you need as a board member. And I can pledge to you that as a board member, and as a board, and I think I speak for all of them, we are committed to educating all children. We are committed to supporting our staff in the best way we can. We are committed to being honest and trustworthy with our community. I mean, we've had to look at some pretty tough data. And I remember the first round we got, I was so discouraged, you know. It's just like, how do we dig ourselves out of this? Because we had been putting Band-Aids on things and not looking at our system. And without that, we were going downhill fast. And I mean, that's reality. And we'll lay it out for you if you don't believe me. We were in that situation. So I think the best we can do is figure out ways to work together. Yeah, I think there are better things we could do for our highly capable. You know, I was in the legislature for a period of time and this issue was discussed, and it's always been an issue. You know, we've got such capable students, and at the same time you worry all the time that they're not being really challenged in the way that they can. And then you see those who are in 8th grade that can't read. And you go, what did we do wrong? Where did we fail our teachers and our students? Because that's how I view the world. So I urge you to keep coming. I urge you to, keep our feet to the fire, because we have a huge job ahead of us. I mean, why Superintendent Campbell would take this job is beyond me, because we are asking her to take something that was very, very broken and fix it in as short a time as possible. Because as somebody said, my child's growing up while you're taking 2 years. Well, sometimes we have no choice, but on the other hand, we have to think about that, and we have to try to figure out a way around it. So again, I could go on and on, because I really agree with everybody who stood up here and talked, because I think all of those things are just so important. But the fact that you came and we've had this conversation, keep our feet to the fire, keep coming, keep challenging us. And the first contact, if you have a problem, is the superintendent, but we are also responsible ultimately for what goes on in this district. So we aren't going to solve your problem necessarily as quickly as she can, because we'll communicate to her in many cases. But when you get to those higher level, the strategic plan, and a lot of these pieces that you've raised that we obviously need to fix, we don't know about it unless we hear them. And so I just thank you so much. We have been on a journey, and we're just really getting started on this journey. We got a long way to go, but I think everybody in this community can benefit if we can just keep it together. Thank you.
Thank you. So I too want to reiterate that we appreciate you coming tonight. We had a lengthy discussion about linkages, and that's connecting with all of you, our stakeholders, right? Taking care of our students, our scholars, right? But for me, what I've learned over the last 18 months with Dr. Campbell is it's a student-centered focus. It's always about students. Where are they at, and what are we doing, and all the decisions that we make. And when I see statistics that show 95% of our ninth graders are not on track, I mean, what does that number say? What we've done in 39 buildings over the last 20 years is not working. And we have to make changes. And we have to trust as we make those changes. As been shared, we're not all going to agree with them. But I wholeheartedly believe in Dr. Campbell and her team and the direction that we're going. I have 3 students in this district, and I can tell you that the K-8 curriculum adoption is making huge difference. I have 2 very voracious readers in my family, but I can see the improvements in them as well, in what the changes happen with this first curriculum at a K-8. And we're going to talk about INS 2 tonight, which is student achievement, right? So our responsibility as a board is at the policy governance level about what we're doing to take care of all 23,000 scholars. And when you talk about 95% of our ninth graders not being on track, it's time, as was shared, that it's a paradigm shift. We must shift. We can't continue down this path and not take care of our scholars. So all of you have been working very, very hard in your own silos, right? And for us to change that as we talk about the mobility that's in the district, and as we rank against those that are in our area, and we're 7th out of 8, we have to make huge shifts. And I, as a board member, trust Dr. Campbell and her team in the direction they're going and the things that they're doing. Is that going to change some things for adults? I can tell you my first year and a half on this board, I believe a lot of the decisions that were being made were adult-centered focused decisions, not student-centered focused decisions. And the changes that we're seeing truly are for all 23,000 scholars. We are the most diverse district in this state. And the cultural competency requirements that we need to have to make sure that we're reaching all of those students are part of what has to be reflected and looked at as well as we make these changes. Every classroom that they go in, we need to make sure that they start to see themselves in what that curriculum and what they're seeing on a daily basis, that they feel safe and secure and comfortable. Student-centered focused must be this change. Adults are going to have a hard time. What was shared also is that we have to support the staff as well. So there is a staff change that we have to support you as we go through the changes. Teaching for 25 years and shifting, I mean, I think as a man that's going to be 53 next month, to think about me shifting the way I've done things in my job for 18 years. It's not easy, but ultimately, we have to take care of all 23,000 and make sure that we're doing all that we can to make sure that they're successful as they leave our doors. So again, I appreciate all of you coming and sharing your pieces. The linkages are important. We're working as a board. By June, we're going to come up with something for us to have better linkage with all of you next year. Not sure how that looks and what it will be. I'm sure facilities will be a big piece. That's part of what's on the docket for us to make sure that we're looking at facilities as we move forward. A couple other things I want to share is that we went to the Federal Relations Network at the end of January. Director Drake and I did, which is actually going back to DC to meet with Senators Cantwell and Murray and Congressman Smith. I want to make you aware of a national House bill, House Bill 610, right? That bill actually gives vouchers for 5 to 17-year-olds and how we do our piece, and it completely takes away the 1965 Elementary and Education Act if this passes through. Everything we know for the last 50 years of how education has been done is at risk. So it's important that you contact your congressmen and your senators to tell them where we're at and what we believe. If we voucherize the system, we are going to be in trouble. And so it's important to look at what's happening in the national landscape. There's a lot going on at the state level, but we have to understand what's happening nationally and the changes that are going to impact our students that could really turn very quickly. So please be aware of those things that are happening. And the last piece I'll share is that the STEM exhibition was pretty exciting. I came into this, I campaigned around CTE, and I'm excited about where the district is going and the things they're doing to make sure that we're taking care, again, of all of our students, giving them all those opportunities, and making sure that they know that there are opportunities out there in many different ways. Having over 80 vendors was pretty phenomenal, and I stood in line for 15 minutes because we got there a little early and the line was long to get in, right? So things might shift a little bit next year in the way it's done. 3,000 people into a building was not easy, but it was actually overwhelming in a very good way, right? So thank you for all the work that was done, you and your team. It was pretty phenomenal. All right, now we move on to ENDS 2. Dr. Campbell?
So I'd like to have Deputy Superintendent Dr. Pfeiffer and Interim Chief Academic Officer Martin Boonstra. James Crawford is ill tonight, or he would have been here. He's helped to contribute to this presentation. So thank you for sharing the data on ENDS 2. Too bad you're leaving. This might be some important data for you to look at to understand what we were talking about earlier. I would encourage those of you that are leaving to maybe stay to hear some of the data that we're responding to.
Good evening, Board President McAnally, members of the board, Dr. Campbell. As Superintendent Campbell shared earlier, we're here and pleased tonight to present to you the ENDS 2 update. Joining me this evening is Mr. Martin Boonstra, Interim Chief Academic Officer. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide the interpretation and evidence of ENDS 2 reflective of the 2015-16 school year. In review, ENDS 2 is reflective of academic achievement. Specifically, each scholar at every grade level will perform at or above the state or district standards in all discipline. Sub-ENDS 2 has 2 dimensions. As you recall from Conley's 4 factors of college readiness, there are 2 dimensions related to Sub-ENDS 2, academic achievement, academic knowledge skills, and academic behavior. In this interpretation, we define this as the learning standards, both the content and the process, or the academic behaviors, by which scholars are able to attain knowledge. Our data points presented in ENDS 2 align with the state learning standards, which rigorously measure both the content and the confidence to succeed. Think of Sub-ENDS 2 as an essential leg of the 3-legged stool that will lead to scholars graduating ready to succeed as responsible citizens. One leg is related to having the confidence to access post-secondary options. Another leg is aligned to Sub-ENDS 3, commits to ensuring each scholar has the personal responsibility and citizenship required to be successful. And Sub-ENDS 2, outlined in this presentation, aligns to the academic achievement at each grade level, as outlined in the first stool leg. The image of the stool indicates how Sub-ENDS 2 is critical for our scholars to achieve the ultimate goal in Sub-ENDS 1, which is graduation and attainment. In order to identify the data points of sub-ends 2, we are looking closely at the standards in ELA, math, and science. In Washington, state learning standards in ELA and math are aligned to the Common Core state standards. The assessments and the data points in ENDS 2 are aligned to these standards. The state has also adopted the next generation science standards, and our state science assessments presented here are moving toward the alignment of these standards. Each set of standards, math, ELA, and math, most notably can be encompassed by key shifts that outline the key content and habits of mind that are required by our scholars as they work towards achievement of these standards. The ELA and math science standards are the critical standards that scholars in Washington state must be able to learn and demonstrate. These standards form the foundation of what Federal Way Public Schools must enable students to know and achieve. The assessments we'll outline tonight are aligned to these standards and will demonstrate the 2-year trend in student achievement. In order to inform ENDS 2, we will continue to establish data and results to ensure our ability to collect accurate, reliable data. For those increases, we will use the 2015-16 results to benchmark and then to inform our targets. In measuring our targets this evening towards achieving ENDS 2 progress, each measure in tonight's presentation will be rated. As we review the data, you will notice we are comparing 2014 to 2015-16 data in order for us to see the progress over time. We will use the following symbols. A green thumbs up indicates we've met the target for this particular measure. A yellow caution indicates that we do not have enough data to make that determination. A red thumbs down indicates we did not meet the target for that particular measure. And finally, the 2-pointed arrow indicates little to no change in achievement for that particular measure. For ENDS 2, we will focus on the goal areas, and we will begin with goal 1, the measure of progress. This measure of progress includes the percent of scholars ready for kindergarten as measured by WAKIDS assessment, and the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards in English, language arts, and mathematics by the end of grade 3. As you can see from this data set, measures the percent of scholars ready for kindergarten by ethnicity as measured by WAKIDS assessments. To provide context, the 6 domains measured in the WAKIDS assessment are social emotional, physical, language, literacy, cognitive, and math skills. There was an overall increase in Federal Way Public Skills of 5%. The Pacific Islander subgroup showed the largest increase by 10%. The progress against this measure was met. This data set measures the percent of scholars ready for kindergarten by subgroup as measured by WAKIDS assessment. Again, there was an overall increase of Federal Way Public Schools of 5%. All subgroups increased with the exception of special education with a decline of 1% overall. The progress against this measure was met. Our next measure reflects the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards by ethnicity in English language arts by the end of 3rd grade. This data set is reflective of our Smarter Balanced assessment. Overall, Federal Way Public Schools increased in the 15-16 by 3%. All subgroups increased with the exception of our Black subgroup with a decrease of 4%, and our Native American and white subgroups had little to no change. Overall, the progress against the measure was met.
Can you explain the 9 out of 20?
Yes.
Illustration. That might be the simplest way to start to illustrate some of this.
Sure. The graphic in the top right-hand portion of the slide illustrates if we were to look at 20 students in Federal Way Public Schools, 9 of those 20, as illustrated by blue, did not meet standard. Let's see. The data set includes the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards by subgroup in English language arts by end of grade 3. This data set.
It's the opposite, isn't it? 9 out of 20 met
standard. Yeah, I'm sorry, met standard.
That's okay, yeah.
Sorry. This data set is reflective of our Smarter Balanced assessment. Again, Federal Way Public Schools increased by 3%. All subgroups increased with the exception of female with little to no change. And again, the progress against this measure was met. This next data set reflects the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards by ethnicity in mathematics by end of grade 3. This data set is reflective of the Smarter Balanced assessment. Federal Way Public Schools increased 1% overall, and all subgroups increased with the exception of Hispanic and Native American subgroups. This measure against this progress showed little to no change. This data set reflects the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards by subgroup in mathematics by the end of third grade. This data set is reflective of our Smarter Balanced Assessment. And again, Federal Way Public Schools increased overall by 1%. All subgroups increased with the exception of ELL and the female subgroup. Again, the measure against this progress showed little to no growth or change. This summary slide shows an at-a-glance summary of our chart data and references an increase or a decrease in the trend data. So percent of scholars ready for kindergarten as measured by WAKIDS, 5% increase. Percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards in English language arts by the end of third grade, 3% increase. And then the percent of scholars meeting or exceeding grade level standards in mathematics by the end of third grade, 1% increase, so little or no change.
While we have highlighted Goal 1 measures, the heart of ENDS 2 is aligned to Goal 4, Mastery of All Subjects. Goal 4 of our strategic plan and its measures of progress align to all measures of progress in the goal. Goal 4 measures of progress included here are the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in core subjects as measured by state assessments. For this particular measure, since we highlighted third grade scores in Goal 1, we will show progress against grade 8. Our last measure of progress for this ENDS 2 presentation is the percent of scholars participating in advanced coursework and earning a passing grade. This next measure reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in English language arts by ethnicity as measured by state assessments by the end of 8th grade. The data set is reflective of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Federal Way Public Schools increased overall by 4%. All subgroups increased with the exception of the Pacific Islander subgroup with a decline of 2%. Overall, the measure against this goal was met. This measure reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in English language arts by subgroup as measured by state assessments by the end of 8th grade. This data set is reflective of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Again, Federal Way Public Schools increased overall by 4%. All subgroups increased. The measure against this goal was met. The next data set reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in mathematics by subgroup as measured by the state assessment by the end of 8th grade. Federal Way Public Schools increased overall by 3%. All subgroups increased with the exception of the Pacific Islander subgroup with a decline of 9%. Overall, however, the measure against this goal was met. The next measure reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in mathematics by subgroup by program group as measured by the SBA in 8th grade. Again, Federal Way Public Schools increased overall by 3%. All subgroups decreased with the exception of the male and female subgroups. Overall, the measure against this goal was met.
It's important to note that 7 out of 20 scholars. I think for our audience, it would be great if you could just sort of hit those.
I'll highlight that,
That would be
absolutely.
great.
I
It's
can do
very
that.
straightforward.
Absolutely. So this slide reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in science by ethnicity as measured by state assessments by the end of 8th grade. And this data set is reflected in our measure of the MSP assessment. So you can see overall, Federal Way Public Schools had an increase of 4%, and all subgroups increased with the exception of the Pacific Islander subgroup. And you can see in the picture with the students, 11 out of 20 scholars met standard in 2015-2016. Overall, the measure was met against this goal. This slide reflects the percent of scholars meeting grade level standards in science by program group as measured by the MSP science in 8th grade. Again, overall, there was an increase of 4% and all subgroups increased, and you can see 11 out of 20 scholars met standard in 2015-16. And overall, the measure was met looking at the 2-year trend. This set of data, now moving on to another measure, is 11th and 12th grade scholars taking an advanced course who earned a passing grade. Advanced course is defined as classes in ELA, math, and science through our AP, Cambridge, and IB programs. A passing grade is considered a C or greater. Overall, the number of grade 11 and 12 scholars participating in advanced coursework, 89% earned a passing grade in the 15-16 school year, a decrease from the previous year by 4%. All subgroups went down with the exception of the multiracial and Pacific Islander subgroup. So therefore, this measure was not met. You can see by the graphic, we're showing 18 out of 20 scholars had earned a passing grade in 15-16. Again, looking at the number of 11th and 12th grade scholars participating in an advanced program, 89% earned a passing grade in the 15-16 school year, and here we have it by program group. All subgroups went down with the exception of the ELL subgroup and the students with disabilities subgroup. Overall, the progress was not met, and you can see that 18 out of 20 scholars earned a passing grade that were in advanced programs in these subgroups. So this summary slide summarizes the data presented for 8th grade scholars as measured by the state assessments, as well as scholars participating in advanced coursework and earning a passing grade. In summary, 8th grade outperformed all grades in the 2-year trend with a 3% and a 4% increase in math, ELA, and science. The percent of scholars participating in advanced coursework and earning a passing grade decreased by 4%. Overall, the ENDS 2 report has highlighted data that is aligned to 4 measures of progress in our strategic plan, aligned to Goal 1 and 4. Specifically, the 2-year trend indicates that in 2 out of 4 measures, growth has been fully demonstrated, while the data has remained flat or declined over the remaining measures. And that concludes our presentation.
Dr. Campbell, I'd just like to also add on that this is a condensed version because during the work study, we presented 87 slides. And so for the full deck of achievement, which the board has already been exposed to, it provides a little bit different highlight into our academic achievement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Directors, do you have any questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, board members, we did the survey, and so the survey is before you for us to come up with a single voice document that I will bring next week to our work study. So I would open it up for discussion or any comments at this time based on what is there. Dr. Wilson?
I'd be happy to start. What we're doing is looking at our reflection as a board on this sub-N2 and as a board monitoring the superintendent's progress. And so there are 3 questions, that we are asked to respond to. So just so people know kind of what we're talking about. One is the interpretation aligned with the ENDS 2 policy statement. One is the rationale clear and aligned to the policy statement? And the third is the amount of achievement reported enough to be considered reasonable growth? So that, just to give people an idea. And I would say as I look at all questions, I think we're all in agreement. The only question that we continue to go back to is what is reasonable growth? And the idea that until we're able to really nail that down and to come up with some quantifiable metrics for the superintendent, that measures of progress over time are what we're going to have to look at. And so I would just say, as a board member, I would say that we are aligned and the rationale's clear, and that the achievement, although not where we want it to be for our measures of progress over time, I think we've made reasonable growth or progress.
I think I'd like to emphasize the point I was making in my comment because of the concern that I heard today relative to, it might take some time. From my perspective, if you've had a prior model where all the teachers had their own curriculum development, and now we're trying to put them within a overall structure that's more aligned and strategic and holistic, that there's going to be some period where the children that were in the old process are going to need to be caught up and make sure that they're on track to move through the system in a newly structured manner. And so that's going to take some time. So I kind of view this as a bit of a transient period. So it's not a time to panic and see where results aren't happening to say something's wrong, because I think there's this transitional period that we're going through before we're going to see some impacts. And I understand the concerns of the parents to say, well, my child's in there now, but the systems should be in place so that those that are lacking because of the different curriculum that they might have been exposed to in the past are, getting the help that they need to come back on track.
Director Drake.
I think one of the comments that I want to draw attention to is the fact, and I think it was mentioned during our board comments, is this is pretty much the first time we've actually seen the data and the transparency of where we are. And until we have got to this point where we can identify just where we are, we could not put in place some of the strategies, some of the systemic ideas that are needed to make the changes that we here in Federal Way, K-12, pre-K, need to be making. And I think that's an important point as well, that we, although we're talking about there is some time before we can make some of the changes we want to see made, at least we know what it is we're up against and what we're working with, which is why I think wholeheartedly, I think you heard the board supporting the action that our superintendent and her team are taking. When you look at this data, it really speaks very loudly and clearly to what we need to be doing.
Director Gregory.
For some reason, my information isn't on here, but we'll get another copy out. But
This is it right here.
no.
Oh,
On this.
oh, you mean your input?
My input, yeah. I concur. I do think that, though, some of the things that were brought out tonight are very important, and that is that we also make sure that the changes that we're making are positive for all children, and they aren't just trying to meet the needs of some. And I think we're doing that. I think that what we have adopted so far is rigorous, and it should challenge all children. But that's something we're going to have to also watch as we go through this process.
All right, so I will work on a single voice document and bring that to the work study next week for approval. And with that, we are adjourned.